Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me add my welcome to you and also my thanks to you for supporting this State of the Nation. It's a tremendous opportunity for us to get together and look at, contribute to the really significant issues facing the country. It's, I must say, tremendously pleasing to be able to interact personally with so many business leaders, private and public sector, not-for-profit, regional areas, as well as city-based areas. It's a great pleasure. Leveraging productivity enablers, digital, communications and innovation. I think, quite frankly, that we can go well beyond this session title. And if we really think about the role that digital and communications technologies are having, we can easily get beyond productivity enablers or the role that they play in establishing that term that Clive Palmer introduced to us yesterday, efficientism. But they're also growth enablers, and that's the key point. And really, my role on the board of CEDA, my role at IBM, but also my role as leading the Comparative Advantage Task Force at the Business Council of Australia. We're looking very seriously in all of those frames of reference at the role, growth for the nation, our areas of comparative advantage, and where innovation, the important role on both the demand side and the supply side of innovation that this whole concept provides. It's well beyond productivity, but productivity and participation we've talked about as well, and really it's part of getting the best out of population of the third of the three Ps. So if we're going to go well beyond this, what I'd also like to do is somewhat different to most speakers on this topic. All of us are aware, because we've just been doing about 25 minutes of it, checking up on emails, messages and so on whatever smart device you're carrying with you. And while it's exciting to know that there's over 1 trillion of those in the world and they're growing at an enormous rate, and let me assure you that the device you have in your pocket is twice as powerful as the IBM computer that put man on the moon, I'm going to take an enterprise out view rather than a consumer in view, because the consumer view is very well covered. And what I'd like to show is, if we go beyond this title, is how is it that the leaders in today's business and society worlds are really using this technology. So that's my objective in my 15 minutes. So if we have a look, really adapt and grow is the theme I think that's more useful. If we have a look here, I'm going to talk about, firstly, it's pretty obvious to us if we look at the bottom there, the 4 most significant moves or initiatives that exist in today's world in technology. Obviously, cloud is number 1. Analytics, and particular if we can get big data associated with analytics, not small data, very powerful. I've mentioned mobile already, and the other one is social media. And the leading organisations in financial performance, revenue growth and margin expansion, 100% of those have a very powerful mix of those 4 technologies that they are deploying today. It's absolutely certain. We've asked in our 4,000 interviews of C-suite leaders around the world in over 70 countries and 20 industries, we've asked their view, and then we check the financial performance, and it is absolutely there. The real leaders and pace setters are there. But your question should be not, are they using those technologies, but how and why are they using those technologies, and what opportunities does that provide to our country, to our enterprise, to our society for growth, for employment, and for sustaining prosperity and growing prosperity in the nation. So that's my objective. If we have a look then at some game changers, these companies are leading because they're changing the competitive dynamics in their industry, and in many ways they're redefining their industry, and they're using 3 game changers, I'll call them. The first one is that we're moving beyond the systems of record of the past to they are creating systems of engagement. The 2 big impacts of all of this information and communication technology, number 1 is global, as we've already heard from Dr. Lee this morning, domestic economic boundaries are losing relevance. It's becoming global competition and globally connected. And as we move to beyond the 80% of our economy that is in the service industry, this provides for us both opportunities and threats as a nation. Systems of engagement to engage customers and also to engage employees are very, very important. Systems of record got us to the 1990s. They're inside the four walls of the organisation. Systems of engagement take us out. So the very early systems of engagement were quite basic. They asked you to like us on Facebook. And that was a way of getting you to be engaged in a community using social media to start at very, very low cost. And you can see how that is getting information to you. Why? Because people are 4 times as likely to trust friends, family and communities that they're a member of in terms of their buying decisions. 4 times. So if you're in a community and you've opted in, you are 4 times more influenced by that community than you would be by the retailer, by the manufacturer or some other vendor in the process. The same works for companies engaging their employees. So systems of record in pace-setting leading organisations are giving way to systems of engagement. The second component here is the role of analytics and the combination of analytics in this process or this transformation to really learn and move the decision-making construct in the business from sense and respond, which has basically through all time, up until about sort of 7-8 years ago, all time, to a predict and act world. When I did my Masters in marketing, the whole construct of marketing was segmentation. It was about observation of target markets in certain segments, and basically it was about extrapolation. And we would find, so we would do test markets probably in Adelaide because it was small enough. We would bring in people who wanted to opt in and we'd stand behind one-way glass and we'd ask people to ask them questions and we'd try and learn and we'd make decisions about product placement, product design, features, etc. Today, we are well beyond that because we have the analytics power at the segment of one individual customer that allows us to predict and act. And I've got the New South Wales Waratahs here, not only in business, but the Waratahs, New South Wales Waratahs are a business as well. IBM's been working with the Waratahs this year in using analytics, and the software product is SPSS that some of you be aware of, to basically analyse hundreds per player per day of medical and other qualitative indicators that are allowing them to predict trends and change training regimes before injury happens. So that they have had this year, if you've noticed, there is an uptick in performance. Secondly, there is a significant, and I mean material, reduction in medical costs, according to the CEO, Jason Allen. And thirdly, that most importantly, is the performance of the enterprise and the performance of the team is up because the best players are more available than they had. They've had less time out. And the impact is quite significant. So the predict and act orientation says if we observe the trends in player X, then this player is on their way to injury. The alternate, by the way, and when Hayden, the athletic conditioning coach of the Waratahs, said the other side is players who are nowhere near injury because they could be trained harder, then it's the other side, the flip side of exactly this performance orientation that we're talking about in making tangible there on a small scale. But again, imagine that same technique applied to the Australian Army in terms of the training and capability development of combat troops. Imagine the same approach as to how the rehabilitation of troops injured in combat and in training environments could be enhanced. It is very, very significant. The next game change, if we have a look, is, and this is where the real leaders are in the world. And if you look at any equity market on the planet, any equity market, and you find where the significant wealth generators are, almost all of those, all of the ones I've found, I haven't found any that are not, are creating systems of insight. And what they're doing is combining systems of engagement, not just a one-way flow of new way of delivering the existing product, but they've fundamentally changed the value proposition so they learn. Steve Sargent from GE told us a story at a conference here in Canberra not long ago about their jet engines. 60% of the jet engines in the world are GE. The new 787 engine downloads a terabyte of data a day. They have an insight based on that scale of engines in production that mean that they can guarantee that their users of those engines will not have an aircraft out of service because of a maintenance problem. They can predict. They know the blade wear is higher in the Middle East because of sand airborne. They know all of those factors. That's an example of big data at systemic scale. And if we look at a company like Nest is a company that was a small startup. If you look online, you'll see that they have a thermostat-based business linked via mobile phone and communications technology, that they will, over time, learn and optimise the energy consumption in your house. It's a US business, startup. Google paid $3.2 billion for that business. Now, why did Google pay $3.2 billion for that business? Because in their business and corporate development, they are in no way drunk and disorderly. They are very, very focused. What they were doing is they had a vision to take that optimisation of your thermostat to provide insight back to utilities to say, these are the pre-programmed demand trends that exist amongst your customers, and we can give you better insight to those than you can yourself. And secondly, we can provide a way where you can contract with those customers that if you're getting near a brown or a blackout, you can turn down, with our help, you can turn down their energy use because we can adjust their thermostats and we can avoid a brownout or a blackout, which would have massive financial consequences. That's quite different to someone saying, I've got an analytics-powered thermostat in the house. But it really, to me, is a fantastic example of a system of insight. How are my users using their thermostats to control energy? What does it mean for my gas supply, my water supply? What does it mean for electricity and their bill optimisation? How can I leverage that? What's the value of it in net present value terms? And we see $3.2 billion later, a very significant thing. Who knows what value Google has made beyond that? It's a very, very good example. Imagine, if you will, the impact that that sort of insight might have in the Department of Industry in this country if we had similar insights from small and medium enterprises, whether they're in remote areas like the Pilbara or they're in big cities like Sydney, Melbourne, or here in Canberra. What impact could we have in terms of policy formulation, accuracy rather than averages? It could be fundamental, the impact that we could have, and really, that really is the significant development that we have. So if we just move on then and just say, let's have a look at that. 2 years ago, we did some work with Phil Riven of Ibis World, and we looked at the economic impact of this connectivity of the national broadband network. High-speed broadband network, very simply, half of the economy will be substantially advantaged, and the other half will lift with the rising tide in all boats. 23% of economic activity will be fundamentally transformed if we don't just deliver the same services and products by an electronic means, but we transform the nature of the value proposition itself, system of engagement, system of insight. We then said last year, let's have a look under what we called the era of smart, and we said, what would happen in 7 sectors of the economy if we turned a leader and a laggard? And someone said, I absolutely believe that this digital transformation thing is the future. I'm going to take small steps every year, and I'm going to compound those from now until the year 2025. What will happen? And we did this for mining, we did it for health, we did it for higher ed, we did it for retail, we did it for financial services. Public administration, though, given the pincer that John Brumby was talking about just before the break, was exactly one of the areas we wanted to focus on. And rather than just do this work ourselves, we engaged with Dr. Peter Brain from the National Institute of Economic and Industry Research, and you can see the summary here. The Era of Smart document there, you can see the website address if you do want to download the report. But basically, what it shows is that today, The public administration in this nation is 4.8% of GDP, and if we do nothing and it stays at 4.8% of GDP, then will end up by 2025 as costing $40 billion per year more to deliver arguably the same outcome as it would if we were to accelerate the digital transformation, to deploy cloud analytics, mobile and social techniques in a very pervasive way to develop systems of engagement for people who are supported by Centrelink, who are involved in the health process, to get insight around treatment, policy formulation and resource allocation. The forecast from Dr. Brain and his team was that the GDP percentage could be lowered to 3.9% from 4.8% over that timescale, and it would be some $40 billion per year. So exactly the dilemma that John Brumby was talking about, I don't see, and this is one of the reasons why I'm in the technology business, I don't see another solution to that problem other than integrated operations, insight working on specifics rather than averages to take out inefficiencies in the process. It's a fundamental opportunity and something that I don't think we can afford to miss. And as Stephen's pointed out, I think nearly every speaker so far in the State of the Nation has referenced the impact of technology. I'm referencing the potential of technology and how central it will be, and also why those statistics that John Brumby showed us about mathematical and science capabilities amongst our kids scare the living daylights out of me, quite frankly. So if we just have a look at where we're going here, we need to invest now for our future prosperity. You know, the forecast that I've talked about and being able to close the gap or manage the squeeze between those pincers, really we have an opportunity to go right back to where I started and look at the competitiveness of Australia, our comparative advantages in an economy that is 80% services, with very nimble and highly numerically literate populations to our north. The first lesson in change management is every opportunity has an equal and opposite threat. What are we going to do about it in this nation? What is our opportunity? What is our threat? And how will we deploy technology to develop systems of insight and systems of engagement such that we leverage this undeniable trend towards success, towards prosperity and towards growth? What does it mean for locations like Karratha, where we have been working with Ken and his team to really develop the nature of a smart city in Karratha that is technologically enabled and linked to the rest of the world despite their remote location? What will we do? What will we decide? When we look at technology initiatives, I'd like you to just pencil down 3 questions. Will this investment increase our engagement with our customers and employees, or are we merely paving the cowpaths of the past and delivering the same product in an electronic way? Will this increase our engagement with customers and employees? Will they enable us to predict and act at the segment of one level? And will they give us a level of insight that is very differentiating from our competitors, and therefore will allow us in this? We've talked about the low consumer debt-fueled world that we're in and how there's no growth. There is growth, but in the average there is no growth. How do we find those rich seams? How do we get there? The answer is we need insight and we need action. As a country, we've got to ask this question. Do we want to continue being prosperous with first-rate public services and high economic growth and low unemployment? Or do we want the alternative? And if the answer is that's exactly what we want, then we must start investing now. We cannot sit on the sideline and wait, because the opportunity will become a threat very, very quickly. Thank you very much.